percentage of that money. From our research, 5 to 10% normally, but if you look at it in the context of if she's picking up £5,000 on average a time, or if not more, that's £500 for probably a couple of hours' work.
Okay, let's start with the first offence that occurred on the 10th December 2021.
Collecting the cash makes the courier the most exposed member of the criminal network. By arresting her, police hope to identify others higher up.
She was interviewed twice, and this is what she's got to say. Frustratingly, not a lot.
Tell me how you got there.
Police have nearly a dozen people who say they've handed money to this courier.
Did you travel by taxi?
But the suspect isn't playing ball.
She went no comment throughout.
Last summer, Jane and Mark were targeted by the same gang police believe the courier was working for, and they were using a familiar storyline. A man claiming to be a police officer phoned Mark, saying bank staff had stolen his savings. Mark was initially suspicious.
He said, "Would you like to verify my credentials?" And I said, "Well, yeah, because I really don't want to go any further with this."
The bogus police officer told Mark to check his identity by hanging up and dialing 999.
I said, "I'd like to verify a warrant card." She said, "Yes, what officer?" So I gave the name, gave the warrant card. "Yes, he is a police officer."
What Mark didn't realise was the scammers hadn't hung up their side of the call. They'd kept the line open and played a fake dialing tone, so Mark thought he was ringing the police.
Well, at that point,
we come together in the office.
I was sort of saying, "What's going on?" Mark said, come and help me, something's going on with our bank account. And I'm like, "Well, how much have we lost? What are we talking?" And they said, "Well, we can't give that detail, but if you'd like to phone your own bank by using the number on the back of your bank card." So it all just seemed very genuine.
When Jane rang the bank, once again the scammers had kept the line open. Jane was taken in by the woman on the phone.
And so she gradually started to go through all these transactions, 10,000 going to Nigeria and 10,000 to Spain. We absolutely believed that we'd dialed 999.
Yeah.
And we absolutely believed that we'd spoken to our bank. And so therefore you have absolutely no reason to think that there was anything untoward going on. I was actually like in tears at that point because I was saying, they've taken everything that we've
ever worked for.
Got.
With Jane and Mark convinced their account had been cleaned out, the fake police then told them they could help catch the crooks. They said they'd pay £6,000 into Jane and Mark's account and use it as bait. All Jane and Mark had to do was withdraw it.
You look back now and you think, how stupid were we? But at that moment in time, it was quite terrifying.
And it was very real.
And it was so
very,
real.
Very real. And they were very, very convincing.
When they got home from the bank, the scammers were still on the line. They said the money was most likely counterfeit and could be used to arrest the corrupt bank staff.
That means now that we're sitting here with counterfeit money, which then immediately made me feel a little bit uneasy. And they said, "Well, don't worry, we'll come and collect it from you."
A courier collected the £6,000. Only afterwards did they realise they'd been scammed.
I took the dog out and I still had these warrant numbers on a sheet of paper that I've written down. And I went to see my friend, who's ex-police officer. So I said, "Can you tell me, are these Met Police warrant numbers?" And he looked at me and he went, "No, what's that?"
And at the same point,
And he just said,
I thought,
"Mate, you've been done."
as you came back in the door, I went, "It was a scam," and you said, "Yeah."
Police believe the courier who collected the money was the 18-year-old arrested in North London. Her case was sent to the Crown Prosecution Service 9 months ago. No decision has yet been made about charges. Those higher up in the gang have not been caught.
Bringing justice to victims is really important, but we recognise that we're not going to stop courier fraud by just investigating it. So improving awareness to the public so they protect themselves online or on the phone, simple awareness messages.
Of course I know a good deal when I see one.
If you're the victim of fraud in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, you're encouraged to report it to Action Fraud.
You wouldn't give your information to a stranger. Don't do it over the phone. For advice and guidance.
Action Fraud is run by City of London Police on behalf of the government. It also aims to help the public avoid being scammed.
Hi, Mrs. Walker.
Yes?
Can you please tell me your password?
Normally you only ask for 2 digits.
But due to the nature of the circumstances, I'm afraid we're going to have to go with a slightly higher security.
Action Fraud has just 95 staff at its call centre. Last year, they received almost 1,000 crime reports a day. Sir Bob Neal chairs the Parliamentary Committee, which has been looking at how fraud is handled.
There's increasing frustration with people that when they report fraud to Action Fraud at the moment, it really is a bit of a black hole. And there's no real care, it seemed to us, for victims of fraud. Frankly, we concluded it wasn't fit for purpose.
Of the 30,000 crimes reported to Action Fraud each month, only 1,500 are passed to police to investigate.
If we look at a case and it's just not solvable, whether money has left the UK or for whatever reason, we wouldn't necessarily send the case out to that police force to investigate because they can't investigate it. The second issue will be where we know due to resources that that local police force will only investigate a certain amount within a certain criteria. So we will hold back from sending out some of those cases as well.
In Kent, 12,000 reports were made to Action Fraud last year. Just 500 were passed on to police.
So out of those 500, when we look at going to the criminal justice system, around 4% is what we call our detection rate, which means they ended in with charges from the Crown Prosecution Service.
4% detection rate means just 20 possible court cases from 12,000 complaints. Action Fraud says it's planning improvements.
We are actually implementing new technology for Action Fraud for 2024. We need to be much better at explaining to victims how the process works and what's happening with their cases.
Some people become repeat victims of fraud. Like Joe and Corin's mum, Carol, who has dementia.
This is Mum's house. Lived here since 1976. That's quite nice, actually. Certainly happy memories with Mum and Dad here. Yeah, don't look too good, that one, does it? Dad took early retirement and lived life to the full. And unfortunately, he died when he was 68.
Joe and Corin's dad, Trevor, was an engineer and an amateur racing driver. When he died in 2012, Carol didn't have to worry about money.
He had a lovely pension to leave Mum, and you know they'd had a place in New Zealand that he sold just before he died, and there was a lot of money from that. You know, she was set up.
But just a few years after her husband died, Carol was targeted by fraudsters, selling her fake investment schemes.
One of Mum's financial advisors was worried. Mum had asked to release more money, and he was slightly worried about her behaviour.
When they looked through their mum's bank statements, Joe and Corin were in for a shock. She'd ended up on a fraudster's hit list and had become the victim of repeated scams. After reporting losses of more than £140,000, her bank tried to get back some of her money.
November 2018.
2,500 recovered from 142,000.
Well, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Sick.
We're particularly concerned about investment scams because often they involve life-changing sums of money. The fraudsters work on the victim over a period of time, so it's not just one investment. And perhaps the victim might even see some return initially, but they are drawn into the scam, so therefore, get duped out of huge sums of money.
Another fraudster's been taking money from Carol for years. He's told her she's investing her money in diamonds. Again, her bank statements show the extent of the fraud.
This is one file we've found, which Mum's been making monthly transfers to. 240, the 12th of April, the 20th of April, 290, another one in May, 480. It's every page you look at is more payments. They amount to between 1,500 and 2,000 a month. and this has been going on for about 9 years. All bank transfers. So about 25,000 a year, and she's still received nothing.
Carol's still receiving calls from the fraudster, who calls himself David. She's already paid him at least £200,000. But he wants more.
Hello, good morning, Carol. It's David calling. Just wanted to know if you are still able to do your payment today for 370. Please get back to me, because I haven't heard anything from you, and we'll need to know what to do with your account, either to put it on hold or to cancel the account. I haven't had any update from you. Thank you.
David, that's all we know him as. He's the one who phones Mum and asks her to pay by credit.
Joe and Corinne have already reported David to the police, but they're keeping in touch with him, hoping he'll give them a clue that could help find him and their mum's stolen money.
Hello, David. It's Carol's daughter again.
Oh, hello there. How are you doing? You okay?
Yes. I was listening to your message on the answer machine. I'm just a bit worried. You're not going to cancel Mum's account, are you?
No. Now that you told me the issue, now I'll put information on the account. So it won't be cancelled. It will just be put on hold. So don't worry about that at all.
Okay, thank you.
That's totally fine. But if there's any problems, just give me a call.
Okay, David, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.
It's not just a one-off. They've been preying on her up for 9 years now. And that's what makes it, you know, they've befriended her and built up some sort of relationship with Mum.
And she actually believes what they're saying. You know? That's the sad part.
Police discover that David's been calling from India. That means Joe and Corinne have almost no chance of recovering their mum's money.
Even when there is an investigation, it's quite common for that investigation to reach an end-of-life cycle where money has left the UK, it's gone to a foreign jurisdiction that we cannot access, and unfortunately we cannot progress that case. And that's very sad for us to tell that victim that that investigation can't continue.
Police have had some successes in their fight against fraud. Last year, a joint UK-US operation shut down a scammer's website and arrested more than 100 people who'd been using it. Since March 2020, surveys suggest there's been a 25% rise in fraud in England and Wales. In the same period, the number of convictions dropped from around 11,000 to just over 6,000.
The rewards for the fraudsters are very significant and very substantial, and because they are ruthless and organised people, 40% of all recorded crime, at least, but only 2% of dedicated police resources. That's a massive mismatch, and that then feeds its way through into why there is so little proactive work to prevent it, and why victims feel that they're almost forgotten about, the sense that it's treated as a victimless crime.
The government says it's committed to cracking down on the shameless scammers stealing cash from hard-working families. It says it's spent an extra £400 million on tackling economic crime and has plans to publish a fraud strategy to stop fraud attempts at source and empower people to recognise